So as of right now, there are about 10 hours left until 2025. And since it's the beginning of a new year, first video back on this channel in quite some time, I figured I'd talk a little bit about what is in my camera bag for 2025, some of the things that are staying the same, some of the things that I'm going to be changing and switching up, and why. So let's get started. So obviously when it comes to a brand new year, a lot of people have resolutions, they have things that they want to change, and there are definitely things that I wouldn't say are resolutions, but like I want to change and try something different with not only just my camera setup, but just with what I do with photography this year. The biggest thing is trying to do something to make it feel a little bit less stale. When you do something for a really long time, it's really easy for that thing to feel really stale, really repetitive, like you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over. So this year, any of the changes, the things that I'm gonna be focusing on, what I bring with me on shoots and when I travel and all that fun stuff is all gonna be about trying to make photography interesting and fun again. So first of all, let's talk about the bag itself. This is the bag that I've been using for quite a few years now, and it is by far my favorite camera bag that I've ever used, the Low Pro Freeline BP350. It is very similar to a Peak Design bag in that it has kind of almost like a similar look, right? Like a similar streetwear bag kind of style. It's got these two little handles on the side so you can carry it like a suitcase, and it opens up from both sides to allow your camera storage. And it also allows you to take out these little inserts in the middle to make it just like a regular backpack. So this thing is gonna stay. I don't see any need to be changing that anytime soon. Now, my main kit for things like weddings, photo shoots, any actual like work that I'm doing is gonna stay relatively the same. My primary camera body is gonna be the one that I'm shooting on right now, the Sony a7 IV. It is an absolute workhorse. It does everything I really need it to do, and it's been super reliable. I have no complaints, no real reason to change it or update it. Now, as far as lenses go, my primary two lenses are going to be the Tamron 28-75 and the Sony FE 85mm f1.8. These are both very affordable, very usable lenses. The zoom and kind of the mid-range of the 28-75 is awesome. One thing I do really dislike about the lens is the fact that the zoom does actually extend the lens barrel a little bit. So sometimes it's not the nicest feeling thing to use, but it gets the job done. It's not super expensive. It's also been a workhorse. There's no reason to update it as of right now. The other lens, the 85mm, is one that I think honestly every photographer should have, especially if you shoot people, if you take portraits, because it is just such a flattering focal length. The f1.8 is fast enough and lets enough light in for most low light situations, renders awesome smooth bokeh, and again, just kind of another workhorse of a lens. No reason to update it or change too much of it. It's working right now, so I'm gonna keep it. Now, personally, I love the combination, especially at weddings where I'm shooting with two camera bodies, of having a zoom lens and a prime lens kind of working side by side together, right? I find that there's a lot of situations where I just want to be able to really quickly punch in and zoom in and capture a moment, but on the times where I want to get a little bit more creative, get a little bit more artistic, having a prime lens just kind of, they just make images that look a little bit more special, right? Having a prime lens that has a faster aperture, that renders smoother, creamier bokeh, just gives your image that a little bit extra oomph. So when that situation arises, I have the 85mm on one camera and the 28-75 on the other for versatility, and I find that to be the best of both worlds for me. Now, speaking of that second camera body, for the longest time I have been using this, the A7R II. And while this was really the first like big time full frame Sony camera that I bought, I've had it for many, many years. I think almost 6, maybe 7 years. Time kind of blends together at this point. I've done a lot of shoots on it. I've done a lot of landscape stuff. I've done a lot of portrait stuff as well. But as a second body, this camera is definitely starting to show its age. The big thing that I find with the A7R II is that the focus just doesn't hold up anymore as far as the speed and the accuracy, the write speeds, the shooting speeds, especially compared to what's available out there now for relatively similar prices, at least similar prices to the A7 IV. So more than likely, this body is going to go away before the end of the year and will likely get replaced by something like a A7R IV maybe, if I still want to have that high resolution, or I might look into some other options. Haven't fully decided what this is going to get replaced with yet, but this more than likely is going to be sold by the end of the year. Now, when it comes to the kit that I bring to actual photo shoots, the lens that you're seeing me shoot with right now, the 24mm f1.4 G Master, is always in my bag as well. I do like having the access to a relatively wide angle lens, super fast aperture. This lens has come in super handy in like low lit, dark receptions on the dance floor. So I'm capturing some fun photos there. And it's just nice to have a really fast lens like the G Master at my disposal. Although I will be honest, it really doesn't come out until the very end of the night when I really need some more low light performance. But it is always there, so at every gig, at every wedding, I'm basically shooting with 2 cameras and 3 lenses, and that is pretty much all I need. Now, speaking of lenses, in front of every single lens that I shoot on, I always have a Tiffin Pro Mist black filter, specifically the 1/8 strength. I find that the 1/4 strength is a little bit too hazy, a little bit too glowy for me. Kind of detracts from the image a little bit, but the 1/8 offers just enough of that soft glow. If you use it right, it really adds a lot of character to your photos. But that is one of the things that I want to experiment a little bit more with this year, is using some of the more intense haze filters and maybe some other versions and types of haze filters to see what kinds of effects they make and how, in what ways I can use them. Now, when it comes to video production, there are definitely some things that are going to stay the same, some things that are going to change a little bit throughout the year for me as far as my kit goes. So as far as primary bodies, primary lens, the A7 IV and the 24mm f1.4 is my primary go-to video setup, especially for shots like this, things in interior spaces. It's just been a very versatile and usable setup. Although I do want to experiment a little bit more with using different focal lengths in video, I do find myself using 24mm a little bit too much. So I've got the 85mm, I've got a couple of other lenses that might be kind of fun things to use for video, and a couple of other changes that are going to be coming to kind of my video production style that you'll hopefully be able to see and notice on this channel. While the A7 IV has the perfect amount of video power for things like this, I find that it's a little bit limited as far as like video creativity and what you can do, especially with some of the more affordable options that are out there that are really, really enticing. Specifically, I'm talking about the Lumix S5 II, the Sony a6700, and that kind of insane IBIS stabilization that it has. And if I could get my hands on it, the Fuji XM5. Those are very compelling B cameras and video cameras, so one of those might be making an appearance as a video camera sometime down the line. Maybe even all 3. So as far as audio goes, the setup is going to stay pretty much the same. I've got my DJI wireless lav mic here. This is the version 1. I know there is a new version, but I just haven't found a real need to update it yet. But more than likely, anytime I'm shooting video, there's going to be some kind of wireless mic like this with me. And for the more demanding audio needs, I have my Rode Video Mic Pro that is mounted up to the top of my camera now. Now, real quick, let's talk about some of the things that are likely going to go away. These are specifically things that I haven't found myself really using or finding a creative use for in the past year or two. Specifically, there are a few lenses that I've acquired over time that I just find myself not really needing anymore. The first one is the Tamron 17-28. Now, as far as versatile travel, landscape, and kind of go-to wide-angle lenses, this gives you kind of the best bang for your buck. It is a super affordable lens, and the 17-28mm is very versatile, especially if you're a landscape shooter. And if you're going on a trip, you don't want to carry a lot of stuff with you, and you need one thing that can do it all. this really is the go-to lens for me. The first issue for me is the 67mm round filter thread. 67mm is the exact same size as all of my other lenses, the other Tamrons, the Sony native ones, so it has made it really easy to buy one filter or a couple of filters that can go on all of the lenses and not have to worry about size compatibility. But because it is so wide at 17mm, a circular lens filter causes some issues with distortion around the edges when you get it as wide as 17mm. And to be honest, because of that, I found myself never really shooting with this at 17mm. I would always go to about 24, maybe 22-ish millimeters, right? Somewhere in the middle. If I'm shooting video in the daytime, I have to have a ND filter on the front of this, and if I have it as wide as 17, it's gonna have little weird black bars around the edges. So because I've been shooting this basically as a 24 to 28mm lens, there's no real reason for me to keep this. I have a 24mm that I'm absolutely in love with. I just don't find myself using this lens at all anymore. The next lens that I'm gonna get rid of is one that I bought when I was kind of going through this period of being obsessed with film camera analog lenses mounted to mirrorless cameras. This is the Lights 135mm f2.8 L-Merit R lens in the Leica R mount. There is still a place for that, but not as much anymore. It was fun when I was doing it, and I kind of lost interest in doing that for a while. I may do it a little bit now and then, but I don't really find myself having a need for this particular one. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that for 2025, I really want to do what I can to make photography more interesting and more fun this year. And going along with that is simply trying a few different cameras and a few different styles of shooting that I haven't quite done before. One of the additions to my bag for this year is this camera right here, the Ricoh GR3. If you've been anywhere near Instagram in the past 6 months to a year, you'll probably have seen tons of photos from point-and-shoot cameras like the Fujifilm X100V or X100VI or X106. And a big reason for the popularity of Fujifilm cameras nowadays is their excellent colors, their film simulations, and their ability to go straight from camera to upload and create a really visually appealing, stylistic image and give you a lot of control over that. Now, there is a problem with that. Fujifilms have gotten incredibly popular, and almost every single brand new Fujifilm is hard to find. They're almost all out of stock. I've been waiting over a month now for my Fujifilm XM5 that I pre-ordered, and I probably will be waiting for a few months more. So in the meantime, to allow me to be able to walk around with something relatively small, relatively compact, somewhat stylish, and has film simulations on it, I bought myself the Ricoh GR3, a little point-and-shoot integrated lens camera that I can bring with me in my pocket, play around with when I'm walking through Denver and all of that fun stuff. So this is one that I'm really excited about. I'm definitely gonna be making a few videos with this camera, so make sure you subscribe to see those. Next up, to make photos a little bit more interesting and to make taking photos a little bit more fun, my goal for 2025 is to shoot a lot more film. This camera right here, the Canon AE1 that I picked up from a friend that was nearly unused and basically brand new, is now my go-to film camera. And one of the things that I want to make an effort to do as I take photos and create more throughout 2025 is to make sure to take more photos on film and to get them developed quickly instead of waiting 6 months to a few years and letting rolls expire before even getting them developed. Now finally, the last addition that I've made to my camera kit for 2025 to make things a little bit more fun is this guy right here, the Insta360 X4. I've been playing around with the idea of getting an action camera, a GoPro, or like a DJI action camera of some sort for a few years now, and I've never really pulled the trigger because, quite frankly, I had a GoPro before. I never really used it in the way that it was intended to be used. It never really found a place in my camera kit. And it kind of just was a camera that I would use as a video camera that had worse footage than my actual video camera. The only thing it could do different from my video camera is go underwater. And I live in the middle of the country. I don't actually have that much water around me. So there was really no use for an action camera for the longest time. But the Insta360 X4, with its 8K and all of the extra features that they've added to it, made kind of a compelling case for me to be able to play around with some different shots and some different styles of shooting and just give me a little bit more versatility. It's something that's marketed as an action camera, but it feels a lot more tailored towards creators rather than, you know, people doing extreme sports. So it felt compelling enough for me to at least give it a try. I'm definitely going to be making some videos with this camera as well, so if you want to see those, make sure you hit subscribe. And that's pretty much it. Obviously there's going to be SD cards and random accessories, and I'll probably play around with a few different drones throughout the year, but that's pretty much going to be my primary camera kit and my primary fun travel photo kit for 2025. If you are a photographer, I would love to hear what your kit is going to look like for 2025. Is there something you're like super excited to get? Is there something that you're like, I've had forever and I'm never going to let it go until it breaks? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video and you want to see more photography related content like this, please hit the like button and hit subscribe. Turn your notifications on so you know when the next one comes out, and I will see you in the next one.